Koto, welcome to the Dirt Church Radio aid station number, who knows, but it's 2025, we're here. I'm Matt Raymond.
I'm Ali Pottinger.
This is just a quick little catch-up at the top to bring you a really special recording that happened at Tarawera, and this is the Woman in Trail panel that happened with yourself, Ali, Corrine Malcolm of Free Trail, and Lucy Bartholomew.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. I always feel honoured to be on those panels and be able to talk about something that's dear to my heart and how to kind of break down barriers for women in trail running. And it had been over a year since we did our Women in Trail or kind of equity chat on Dirt Church, and thought it'd be great to kind of talk about progress that's been made in this space. And to kind of hear more of a worldwide view on it. Well, I guess America's from Corrine and obviously Lucy, who runs all over the world. So it was great chatting with both of them to kind of hear their thoughts. And kind of it prompted me to think about what we're doing at Dirt Church for Women in Trail. And, you know, kind of the goals are really to get a range of women on for visibility, provide a platform or space for discussions which can progress our sport, and raise awareness of different challenges that women face. So I thought that would be just nice to kind of bring up before this, and hopefully we continue to do those things going forward.
Well, and not to put too fine a point on it, but the change of Dirt Church Radio actually having a woman as a host, presenter, and part of it has changed the nature. And it's changed the nature of the access. It's changed the nature of the accessibility. And it's sort of, I guess there's one thing, you know, Eugene and I, both of us work in female-dominated industries, but both middle-aged dudes. And I guess sometimes it's that thing, isn't it? It's not the questions being asked, it's who's asking the questions that are important. So yeah, it's fantastic. I love your Woman in Trail panels. I've been to so many of them, and I remember running down Golden Stairs in the Blue Mountains once, and I could just hear you and the Woman's Trail echoing out across ran down Narrowneck and then down Golden, and I could hear you guys talking. It was really, really cool. So very, very special to my heart, and super exciting. But look, we should probably let you get on with the talking and bring you this amazing recording of the Women in Trail panel at Tarawera Ultra Trail.
Okay, kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to our Women in Trail panel. Today I am very lucky because I have two amazing panellists to talk to. I'd like to welcome, well actually let's give them a big New Zealand welcome, Corrine Malcolm and Lucy Bartholomew. All right, Corrine, I've got to introduce you. You are a well-loved person in our trail running community. You've got plenty of hats that you wear, although currently there's not one on your head.
There should be.
She's a pro trail runner, she's an MC, and she was one of the founders of Here for the Women's Race, which started as a simple T-shirt campaign but has grown into a non-profit called the Women's Trail Running Fund. Corrine helped kick it off as a member of the working media and a professional trail runner who was tired of having women's stories overlooked and or told through a male lens. Here for the Women's Race have become a community-centred organisation working towards getting more women on the start lines across age, ability, colour, all the good things. And she's also recently, I think it's just been announced in the past day or so, hasn't it, that she's starting a new role at Hoka as a sports marketing consultant focused specifically on women in trail. Her job will include research, activating local and regional communities, and creating mentorship pipelines for women as work to demystify trail and ultra running. Something that is definitely needed, and I'm so excited to see where this goes. And then beside me, I have got Lucy Bartholomew, who needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Skip it.
She said skip it.
Next.
Lucy got into trail running in her teens and has become a professional trail runner. She's known for her focus on supporting and giving back to the community, and for her openness and honesty, communicating her experiences with her running. And over the past 4 years, foray into triathlon, although I don't think she'll be welcome back after the comment about calf sleeves in the previous podcast. Lucy has raced all over the world and is always one to watch when she shows up at a race. For a woman who's in her late 20s, she's so full of experience and wisdom. She's not shy about calling things how they are and will have a lot to share in this space. And I'm Ali Pottinger, and I have the pleasure of hosting this panel today. I am a Rotorua local. I first ran trails when I was 15. I took a bit of a hiatus and stuck to road running for a while and got back into trail running almost 15 years ago. And from there, I started coaching, trail ultra running, as well as working events on the commentary teams and course marking, which is one of the best jobs you can do alongside the other ones. And I'm also now podcasting on Dirt Church Radio as well. I'm passionate about supporting people to lead healthy, active lives and have a strong drive to improve our sport and make it more equitable. Right, into the good stuff. We know that we lead the world when it comes to women running long distances. We have high rates of participation in longer distance events, but it could still be better. So when I say, like, it's Tarawera, right? We have really good numbers here, which is pretty epic. There's been a huge worldwide push towards making trail running more equitable for women, and over the past few years, there have been heaps of positive changes we have seen happening in the women in trail space. Things like pregnancy policies, start lines, media coverage, improved course marking, record-breaking sponsorship contracts, including pregnancy clauses, equitable time-based awards, changing spaces, race crashes, childcare, more awareness and information about menopause, raised awareness and provision of hygiene products at aid stations, as well as improved toileting and things like Here for the Women's Race, She Races, and PTRA. So, Corrine, on that note, I'm keen to hear, what changes have you seen or been working towards in your spaces?
I mean, part of the reason that I came here was because I wanted to see what was going so right in both Australia and in New Zealand, because the numbers here are phenomenal. Things that we've been working on in the last year. I come from the media side a lot. Many of you know that I've been a commentator at races like Western States and UTMB for many years now, and watching the best of intentions unfold in a way that was unfair towards the front of the women's race in a big way. We'd put together plans that would cover the race, but not necessarily cover the women's race. We'd miss it altogether at times. And so that really lit a fire under me of wanting to share those stories, to highlight those women, because I know when we do that, we get better investment from the sponsors into female athletes. We get more women to see more women racing, and then it kind of like continues to cycle down to the rest of the sport, where I do think that, you know, when you see it, you can be it, you can believe that it can be you as well. And so sharing not just those elite stories, but the stories of the women making it from point A to point B is so critical and so crucial. And so it's not going to fix everything, but it's going to hopefully fix some things.
And when it comes to Here for the Women's Race, like, we know there's the T-shirts, like, what's going on? Like, what are you guys working towards with Here for the Women's Race?
So Here for the Women's Race, or now it's become the Women's Trail Running Fund. Actually, my break in between the two panels was going through the voting that has come through. We've got a 10-woman steering committee for the Women's Trail Running Fund that includes women, community leaders really from all over the place, women from the Black Trail Runners, women in Spain creating these amazing community events, South American athletes. It's really, really cool. Adaptive athletes, trying to make sure that it is, if we're talking about the community and who makes up the community, it's not just people who look like me, it's people who come from all ages, all races, etc., all abilities. And so we solicited grant applications back at the end of the year. We had 87 applications come through from all over the world. We've narrowed it down. We're giving out $25,000 to have female athletes and female creatives tell those stories. We'll be giving out, I believe right now, 5 $1,000 grants to storytellers, as well as one $10,000 grant and 2 $5,000 grants is kind of what it's looking like. And they're going to be sharing stories from all over the world. And so what seems like just a T-shirt is funding kind of this continued initiative to give money back to the community. This year, because we started as a want to tell stories, as a need to tell stories that were overlooked and oftentimes completely forgotten about, will evolve to include things like maybe we give grants next year for childcare, or for partnerships with events that are doing things really well, or for other nonprofits, because our goal isn't to supersede the work of she races or Black Trail Runners or, you know, a local org in your community. Our goal is to hopefully benefit those organizations to work together to continue to highlight and amplify their community and their community needs. And so this year is about storytelling, and it will continue to evolve basically at the you know, I guess, cohesion of everyone's opinions, which is hard at times because we're all fighting for our communities. And we've really had to work hard to change the narrative of like, if my group wins, your group doesn't lose. We've been trying to make the pie bigger instead of this scarcity mindset of fighting for the same piece of pie. And together, we have way more allyship in that, way more kinship in that, and I think a much greater ability to affect all women, not just women in these like subsets.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And you know, when we're trying to work towards equity for women, that opens the door towards equity for other people as well. So, yeah, I think that's pretty special. So, alongside that, like, what other things have you seen in the past year that you think, oh wow, cool, like we're actually getting some traction, like good things are happening?
I mean, I see it from the brand side a lot too, as a professional athlete, but now also working inside at Hoka, as I'm in meetings with people who are saying, who are the higher ups, who are in the C-suite of these companies across brands, saying, okay, we need to stop talking about bringing more women to trail running. We have to start doing things. I think that is really important. We can talk all we want about equity and inclusion and parity in sport, but if we're not doing things, if we're not doing things that are measurable, because you're right, a lot of the barriers to women in sport aren't these like very clear and defined things. It's societal norms, it's cultural pressures, it's things that we were taught subconsciously for decades and decades and decades, for generations. And so they don't have these like clear, always definable, measurable outcomes. And so really trying to take a corporate look at a cultural problem is really interesting so that I can figure out, okay, in quarter two, which like sounds like a lot of jargon, like how am I going to measure success with what we're doing? And I do think that hearing that from the CEO of a brand, from the VP of marketing for a brand, that it's not, and they're women in those roles too, which is really important. I think we see that actually here with the Ironman group. I think 50% of the employees behind the scenes are women. And so it's like the default isn't male then, because it is in so many environments. The default at an event is male. And then we make changes to try to support the women in the race. And so when you have people on your team who have a different lived experience, that I think opens the door to not having this default setting that doesn't actually work for 50% of your participants.
And I think hopefully people see out there, you know, we are making progress. Like I just went to the loo before and it was a women's loo, a porta loo that had a nice dry seat. And it had a little note on the floor saying it's okay to flush tampons, but no nappies. But I just thought, hey, cool, that's something different. And I know that when it comes to sanitary products this weekend, they are going to be on the aid stations. They're going to be hopefully in a clear box available for you just to pick it up if you need it, not to have to ask anybody. So there's always like good tweaks that are happening when awareness is raised. Lucy, I'm keen to hear some of your thoughts on some of these things. Like you've come into the sport from a very young age. Like have you seen progress? Like what's your take on things?
Yeah, there's definitely been progress, and I think, you know, it's been small, but it's building and building and getting more and more mighty. And the biggest thing is just from conversations, like panels like this didn't exist, sanitary items at checkpoints, you know, like those kind of conversations, people on social media talking about training with a period or being a woman growing up in the sport and just like body image and red S and coaching and just kind of like all of that is all kind of getting broken down now and being like, you know, there's people that will speak about speaking about it as if they can speak from an experience, and now we're actually getting women talking about their experiences, and that just, you know, there's a certain level of, you take that with a lot more intelligence. So yeah, it's definitely been improved, and I'm really excited for young women coming into the sport now because there's just so much more conversation, and I think the ability to harness that and then to kind of, we'll see the sport just grow, and especially in the women's side because of that, just being able to empower those women to move forward in their own way and on their own path.
Yeah, and that openness, the communication, like there's a lot of downsides to social media, but when it comes to answering awkward questions that people might be worried about, like what do I do if I get my period on race day? I answered in quite a lot of depth when I thought, oh well, but it's actually good for people to be honest, to share what they do, because then somebody else knows how to deal with it as well. So we can all kind of take responsibility at our own level and, share the photos of you out trail running, share your experiences, and hopefully it just opens the door to somebody else that goes, oh, okay, I'm quite keen to give it a crack. Like, how do I do that? Or what do I do if this happens to me? And kind of thinking about that, Lucy, like, and pressures from social media, that sort of thing, like, how do you deal with it? Like, being a woman, like, do you find that do we get a harder time? Like, elite athletes get a harder time being a woman on social media, or, like, yeah, tell us a bit more.
Oh, how long have we got? No, I think what I've realized with social media is that if you think it's a question that, if I'm curious about a question, most of the time I've been responded with, oh, I've always wanted to know the answer to that. And so there's been this kind of like, once someone says it, everyone's like, oh, actually, I want to know, like, how do you stop your chafing, and how do you deal with your period, and do you use the underwear or the cup, or like what's, and you realize that there's so many different ways of dealing with this, but that conversation and just kind of like breaking down that barrier is just, it's just the first thing that you need to have the floodgates open of realizing there's lots of different ways to do it. You can do it differently. You can find what works for you, but it just creates an ease of a conversation. I have a lot of women and young girls that message me, and it's cool to be able to have that conversation, something that, can feel a little intimidating to sit across from a table and talk to your mom about. But for some reason, I'm this person on social media that they're like, I want to tell you about my period. And you're just like, well, have at it, The
cool aunt.
The cool aunt. Yeah, the cool aunt that's just on the other side of the world. And that's just like, that's a privileged position to be in. And I think that can be the change that happens early in someone's career that creates a sustainable career moving forward, and relationship with the sport and their body.
And talking about that, right, like body image and fueling is quite a tough thing for runners. What's that?
I said big dogs got to eat.
Yeah. Big dogs got to eat is Corinne's advice. I like it.
Yeah.
I think we do need to talk about fueling more. RED-S, like relative energy deficiency in sport, is actually, often the recreational runners are at risk of this. Like, for busy working mums that are on the go, they can often underfuel because or not even just mums, like, anyone, because you're on the go, you're not thinking about yourself as an athlete, even though you are, like, you're here ready to run a race, you're an athlete. So you need to fuel your body for it. And so recreational athletes actually have a higher prevalence of low energy availability. And one way I like to think about it is that if we were all cars, like, we'd still have unique bodies, right? But they still need to run on a fuel. Like, I might be a diesel engine. I don't know. Corrine might be the Lamborghini that needs some high-speed jet fuel, something like that.
Yeah.
Lucy, what sort of fuel would you run on? Potatoes.
An EV.
Potatoes.
Straight petrol.
Straight petrol. But it's like, kind of on that note, right? Like, what advice would you give to women that struggle with body image or struggle with fueling? Like, you've been in the sport a long time, you've learned a lot about it over the years. What's your take on it all?
Yeah, I think it's a subject which is, like, very close to me, and I think for a lot of people. And I would say that, you're asking your body to do something pretty extraordinary. Going for a run is such a privilege. And so I think you should honour that and respect it by giving your body what it needs to be able to continually perform and do it. You can look a certain way, you can look fit and be standing on the sideline and unable to compete. I'd rather look maybe not quote unquote fit, but be on that start line and be able to be amongst it. So I think, you're fueling not only that run, but you're fueling the recovery, you're fueling your day-to-day living, you're fueling picking up your child, you're fueling walking around the expo, the living, the laughing, like, all of those things take energy. And so it's not just the running, it's your whole life. You know, I always say to the athletes that I coach, stress plus rest equals growth. And stress is not just, the training is a privilege of a stress that we add for enjoyment and because we love it. Then you've got everything else. And so you just got to look at it as a whole. And you see on social media what a normal person should eat. You're not a normal person. There's people here that are going to run 100 miles, that are going to run 100K, 50K, 21K. You're doing something above and beyond. And so you've got to fuel like that. And I don't think it matters if you consider yourself an athlete or not. If you're participating in sport, you've got higher needs, and you should act and treat yourself as if you are a professional, resting and sleeping and eating and looking after yourself so that you can do it again and again and lift that child up and walk around the expo and do it in a few months' time again. Because, you know, we only get one body, so we've got to treat it as well as we can.
Corrine?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I say things a lot like big dogs got to eat or eat enough always. Or I co-host the Trail Society podcast, and if you've been listening about 75 minutes into every episode, we're like, oh, are you running right now? Maybe you should have a snack, because that's the truth of the matter. If you run, you're a runner, right? We keep saying things like, oh, you're only doing 50K. Like, no, you're running a long ways, and it's respect to your body, it's respect to your hobby, your craft, this thing you enjoy, whatever it is to you. And it goes beyond just what you're doing on the trail, but off the trail as well. I am a busy person. People will comment on podcast videos being like, is it really cold? Is this like a trail runner thing to be in like a beanie and a big sweater? And it's like, no, because I like come off a run, like maybe shower, and I'm directly into some sort of meeting or recording. And so I've had to be really thoughtful to make sure I have adequate fuel, that I've got something in the car waiting for me. Because it is so easy to make that excuse of like, I don't have time for fueling. I don't have time for this thing. But I can tell you, I feel so much better going to the gym later in the day or getting out for my run the next day if I've actually taken care of myself day to day. And it's not easy. Our sport, endurance sports in general, like to highlight a specific physique or a specific look. And really, you know, it's not about that. It's about taking care of yourself so that you can, you know, continue to put in that consistency that's ultimately going to lead to success.
Yeah. Lots of good advice. I hope we're all taking it on board. One thing I want to add to that too is I've got a toddler at the moment, and I think personally I kind of probably didn't consider fueling enough around like breastfeeding, being a busy mum, and like when you're a busy mum with a toddler, well before that, you know, like you're often pushing a pushchair around for an hour or two a day, and that's actually a big energy spend. And I think probably something that people that are pregnant or about to kind of go through that postpartum period might need to pay a bit more attention to when it comes to energy availability and their fueling, because if you're like breastfeeding and being active, there's probably, I don't even know, I'm going to guess about 1,000 calories or more being burnt each day from that. So just something for people to consider if that's you or someone you know. Another thing that I feel is getting a lot of traction and a lot more of the awareness that it deserves and should have had for a very long time is kind of what people go through with perimenopause and menopause. Like, there's a lot more light being shone up. There's a lot more panels and info evenings and, I don't know, podcasts, you name it. There's heaps more information about it out there. And the changes that happen through that time are huge. And I think if that's you, if you've been going through that or if you've been through it, then I just think, you know, just celebrate yourself, how determined and resilient you are, because you've been able to keep going through all of that. Like I know, you know, people having sleepless nights and hot flushes and brain fog, and, you know, there's probably about 50 different symptoms that you can have. And to keep going through the hormonal roller coaster, just blimmin' good on you, I say. What other positive changes have you seen, Corrine?
I mean, I keep going back to like just taboos being broken, and I think we've all spoken to that a little bit. And this is like, obviously it's a women in trail panel, but this information is valuable to anyone, people who menstruate or don't menstruate, people who identify as male, but you've got women in your life, for example. You have daughters, you have nieces, you have friends, you have colleagues, you have significant others maybe. You have people in your life where this is a big thing they have to think about. And so having spaces where we can break those taboos, that we can talk about it publicly, where we can, not hide these things away, because that's why we also haven't had good research done on so many of these things. We've kind of siloed women off in this category of, well, they have hormones, so they're unreliable test subjects. Well, that's not really a great excuse, right? Or perimenopause and menopause, it doesn't affect white male researchers, so why would we study it, right? So it's all these things that have been siloed over and over again, but now that we have it more in like the zeitgeist of like the everyday human, I think we are going to continue to see those walls be broken. The people that are gonna DM Lucy to say, hey, tell me about this period question that I have, right? No, so I think it's really important to break down those barriers, because we've even seen where people hear about it on a podcast and they feel more comfortable talking to their significant other about it. They feel more comfortable talking to their parents about it. They feel more comfortable talking to their coaches about it, because it shouldn't be taboo, right? These are all normal human things that 50% of the population is experiencing. And so it shouldn't be siloed. It shouldn't be taboo. And so I think opening up the stage to those conversations, to those podcasts, to those videos, to those stories that we'll get to highlight with our storytelling grants this year, those are all important and valid. And I think as we continue to do that, we'll get more funding for it. We'll get more research for it. We'll be able to tell you more about what you've been experiencing, right? Because you all feel like N of ones right now. You're like, I can tell you how my perimenopause feels. I can tell you how being a menopausal woman feels as an athlete, but it won't have to be N of one. I'm sure there's always going to be individual experiences, just like pregnancy, just like being an athlete in sport, just like recovering from an injury. There's always going to be those individual components to it, but I really am excited and do feel like over time, as we continue to grow kind of just the openness to these topics, we're going to be able to help you understand more and more about what's going on with your body or a friend's body, so that you can be that support system and people don't feel so alone. Because maybe that's the biggest thing, is that we all feel really alone when we're dealing with this, when we're dealing with low energy availability, or maybe red S, or you stopped menstruating because of it, or whatever it is. Like, you're not alone, and we are working to create those communities where you can, again, slide into Lucy's DMs and ask those questions.
Can't wait.
Are you ready for it, Lucy?
Can't wait.
She can't wait. I actually just wanted to share some of the good stuff that we do like this at Tarawera, because, we do have really high rates. Like, I don't know, Corrine, can you tell me, like, what is the kind of normal figure that you'd expect on a start line for a 100-mile race in North America?
It kind of ebbs and flows with the race. We actually have a couple of race directors that are like holding spots to make 50-50 races. We also have really small races in the US. Come join us. They're really cute and quaint and have like 150 to 300 people in them. So you know everyone that's racing. It's very different, but it's honestly a lot of 100-mile races that are just left up to chance are like between 10 to maybe 25%. Western states hit 27% last year in our 369-person start field. And so still, that 27%, when you do the math, is pretty small. But it is kind of generally, we're sitting in the teens at the best oftentimes.
So I just want to share some stats with you, because Tarawera Miler, so we started in 2018. It was don't tell anyone, but it was a horrifically wet year. And we had 25 women, 20% of the start line. 2019... I didn't actually have the start numbers, but there were 21% female finishers. 2020, 66 starters, 25% of the start line, and 28% of finishers. 2021, 54 starters, 28% of the start line, 31% of finishers. 2023 was 114 starters, 30% of the start line, and 28% of finishers. In 2025, we have 133 women on the start line for a 100-mile race. And 28% of the start line. Last year was the 15th anniversary, so entry numbers were slightly higher overall. But we really pack a punch, right, in New Zealand when it comes to 100-mile starters, which is so epic. And I think it kind of, like, I'm sure Corinne's probably here to go, like, what are they doing? What's in their water? So I want to share some of the things that we do. And I'm sure, like, probably there's lots of things that you guys are doing already. So at Tarawera UTA Closey, so make it like really determinedly interview the top 3 runners from each race, the men's race and the women's race. Ask for both sexes to be across the start line for visibility. So if you're on a start line tomorrow, you'll probably hear me or one of the other MCs asking the woman to be on the right, because guys know we're always right. Female MC, and we're actually working at getting some more people into it as well, and kind of Corrine's kind of talked about demystifying, like how do you actually do the job, what's involved, like, you know, here are some strategies to do it so that people feel way more comfortable joining us, because it is, you know, like it's, you can probably talk about it as well, but there's actually not many women that do MC work. We have, like Corinne said, we have 50-50 globally and regionally with Ironman and Oceania female staff members. Pregnancy deferrals, and I was really stoked, like one of my family members was signed up for Tarawera 50K last year and she fell pregnant, and she told me the story of how that was managed and responded to by the team, and yeah, it was really cool. So good to see that. Generous cutoffs, like that's one of the things that women feel quite nervous about, like pegging themselves to finish a race in the time given, and so it's really nice to see, I mean, adequate or generous cutoffs. Female interview panels, yay! Thorough websites with lots of information about toilets, parking, transport and aid stations. We have a good variety of age group for podium finishes, equality with prizes. UTA is a major this year, and there's something like, I'm going to say it off the top of my head, I think it's €72,500, and same amounts for men and women podiums. Menstrual products at aid stations, so we talked about that. And one of the really cool things, not so much our course today, but UTA and COSI both have courses that checkpoints are based around buildings. So they've got like proper running water and bathrooms, which is really nice. Like the language around the events is inclusive. Like it's not like come and do this doom-infested race where you're going to get have stones chucked at you. It's actually like, you know, come and join us. Welcome to the family. We're going to help you have success, which makes it way more appealing for us women. Strong female media coverage. So, like, I remember looking at imagery from UTA this year and Beth McKenzie's win, and it was like this drone footage of her running into the finish line with, like, just everybody cheering and then, like, following behind her and just, like, showcasing this really strong finish. And I just thought, yeah, this is what it's about. And one of the really cool things about our race is that family are encouraged to run down the finishing chute. So usually for the longer distances, just because it gets really busy at the finish line for the like 21K and 50K races, but more kind of that 100K, 100-mile distance, like the kids, the family are welcome to join you on the chute. Like, you know, they know how much work has gone into it, and it's so neat when you can share those moments with them. Thinking about, you know, like where we like to see sport heading. Like we've got lots of really good stuff happening, but like where can we pull our socks up? Like for me, I think actually it's probably more of a societal level, which is really, really challenging. But we can also help that, right? Like we can help other women get into running. We can help them when it comes to childcare or finding time. Any thoughts on improving our sport, Lucy?
I was like, I can go first, but go.
No.
Yeah, Corinne.
So I was thinking when you were reading those stats for the miler, which I like love that it's called a miler. In my head, I'm like, that's so short. No, 100 miles. I was like, it's really cute. I'm going to come to Australia or New Zealand to do the miler. Confuse everyone at home. No, but you're reading those stats about the starters and the finishing percent. And what we do know with women, for example, is that they generally do not opt out of the race. They do not volitionally quit very often. If they are on the start line, they are making it to the finish line unless they get timed out. So those time marks, those check marks, those cutoff times become one of the biggest barriers once we get women to the start line. They are very, like, when we look at it at most 100 milers, it's the women that end up not making it, or generally it's because they got timed out at a spot on the course versus like saying, you know what, this is too hard, so I think I'm good. Like women don't tend to do that. But one of the biggest things that I think, talking about that societal piece that I'm going to be working on, is demystifying trail and ultra running. Because, you know, I can think of so many women out there when there's like a job posting and it's like, you must be proficient at Microsoft Office. And men are like, I downloaded Excel. And women are like, I have a master's degree in Excel. Am I qualified? Like there's a lot of that. And that translates also, I think, to sport in a big way, where we are less likely, for the most part, to sign up for something we're not sure we can do. I'm a little bit crazy and I have no great perception of my limitations. So I have definitely gotten in above my head more than a few times, but that's not normal. That's like the normal thing is like we want to be certain. We want all the information from the race and the website. We want to see that we can do this thing. And so trying to demystify what it means and what it takes to train for 100K or to train for a miler or to make it from point A to point B, like making it approachable, demystifying the like hard nature, because it is hard. Anyone who's run any trail race, any marathon knows that it's hard, but demystifying the like, maybe I can't do this thing for women, I think is really, really kind of mission critical. And part of that is societal, but part of that's doing what you all have done here, where it's creating community and community people who get to see their friend complete their first ever 50K or their first ever 100K and think, hey, maybe next year I'm going to sign up for the 21K or I'm going to sign up for the 50K next year. I've got 12 months to work towards it. Like, I think that that is going to be one of our biggest wins when it comes to taking over world dominant style for bringing more women into trail and ultra running.
100%. Actually, this finish line was what got me into ultra running. So I was just trail running. And then I saw all these people doing it. And I was like, actually, like, I can do that. Like, they can do that. Surely I can do that too.
Yeah, I think about when I first saw my dad run his first 100K at Ultra Trail Australia in the Blue Mountains. It was then the North Face 100. I don't know if I can say that, but it was the North Face 100. And it wasn't like the elites that really struck me. I was 15 years old running around the course crewing my dad, and I saw the front of the pack, saw the elites, men and women looking beautiful, effortless, but like didn't feel like I ever looked like that running. Then I saw the middle of the pack, people head down, getting it done, but it was really the back of the pack that I was like, man, they're just walking along with like a handful of chips and a can of Coke, and they're like balancing a selfie and like smiling, and I was like, this is a sport? Like, this is unreal. Like, sign me up for that, okay? And I think that this is what we need to, when you're doing trail running, you don't have to do ultra running. There's a stepping stone to it.
Walking is okay. Walking is a part of the sport.
And walking is a part of it,
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
Someone said to me the other day, I was out training in the Blue Mountains. Like, I didn't know you walked. And I was like, dude.
All the time.
Most of UTMB I walked. But I think that this is like a barrier to just like joining the sport, is this expectation of what running should look like. There's a pace, there's a weight, there's a distance, there's a number that you need to look or reach or do to be able to consider yourself that level of athlete, to be good enough to pay money to then go and do the event. And it's just not the case. And Tarawera is such a great example, is that you have ample cutoff time that it can be a run walk. You can just move your way through, just one foot in front of the other, and you will get to that finish line and you'll be welcomed with open arms. And so I think that like realizing you don't need to jump to the 100 miles and the 100K, and then also validating what you're doing. If I hear one more person say to me, I'm just doing the 21 or I'm only doing the 50, I will cry, because I am so sick of downgrading because there's a bigger distance. I'm not doing the 100 miles, I'm doing the 100K. It's nothing less, it's nothing more. It's just what it is, a number, and it's a huge, huge achievement to be taking on any of these races. And I think kind of just like taking away and removing that, feeling that need to do it in a certain capacity makes it feel more achievable, because, I think that there's like a stigma around, if I'm trail, I got to be ultra, and if I'm ultra, I got to be 100 miles. That's just not the case.
Nah, it's not like for me, no, and not so much these two. It's my hobby, right? Like, I do it for fun, so I might as well have fun doing it. But like, I'm sure that's actually what has led to it being your professional career as well for both of you, because there's still a lot of joy in it. Like, do you do it for fun, Corrine?
No.
I mean, there are many times where I'm like sitting in my car at the trailhead, just like being like, oh man, if I don't get out of the car soon, I'm gonna like run out of time to do my run.
Yeah.
Like, there are days where it's really hard and it's definitely fun, but running is so much more than just fun. Just like food is more than fuel.
Yeah.
It's like running is solace, it's sadness, it's anger, it's joy, it's community. It's all of those things, right? And a run on any given day brings me one of those things. It's quiet time where like I don't have my phone and I'm not answering emails or text messages and no one can find me for an hour. But it's also like getting to catch up with a friend, and it's getting to work really hard and like be scared of a workout and know that it's gonna hurt. Because I was telling someone yesterday, you don't get faster, running doesn't get easier, you just get faster. You know, it's like, it's not easy, but it can be all those things. So yeah, it's fun and it's joy, but man, I did my last long run before this was 20 miles, and it was like 2 degrees Celsius and snowing somehow. And it was like, I was like, this is so specific for Tarawera. I'm so going to nail this thing. So it's like, it's not, that was not fun in the moment. It could have been beautiful, and it wasn't fun, but I was really happy when I finished, and I was satisfied, and then I went and got a fun coffee and called it a day. But I think it's more than just fun. It can be anything that you need on any given day, and that's a really beautiful thing about getting to spend time outside, or if you're stuck, at the gym on a treadmill because of whatever thing. It's all kind of building towards what is ultimately fun, because this weekend should be a celebration for all of you.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Thank you.
No.
No. But I also think there's just so much that's so empowering what you did, right? Like you went out there, and I'm sure in that moment you're kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I always think when you're like kind of up against it, whether it be conditions or time or whatever, you just feel like a badass for getting something in, because you're like, man, something's better than nothing at this point, and it feels like I'm making progress towards a goal. And I think that that's just something that like you should take great pride in being like, man, I was up against it, I was funneled in, and I took the chance and I did what I could with what I had in the time that I had to do it, and taking really good pride in that. And the fun comes after, you did that so that you can have fun tomorrow. And I think that that's just like, I think that's the sport of running. It's like you say, it is so hard. We're doing a really hard thing. Our body is our movement. We're not getting on something else that moves us forward. We move ourselves forward. And I always say, you've got 2 things you can ever control, and it's your effort and your attitude. The effort that you put into making the time, to making it work, to fitting it in, and then your attitude of being like, heck yeah, like I'm super proud of myself. I did it. I got it done. I feel really like optimistic and empowered and stuff like that, instead of thinking, I should have done this, or I would have done this differently, or I coulda, woulda, shoulda. I just think that there's a lot of power in that, and that's what like I really harness, is just like, I got all the time in the world and I still seem to put myself in a corner and find myself just squeezing it in between, I don't know, nothing and nothing. But
wait, can I add one more thing?
You can add to me.
Allie, we're just cutting out the middleman here. No, so one of the things too, that kind of building off that it is hard, is that I'll have athletes come to me and be like, how do I get tougher? Like, how do I work on this mental toughness thing? Like, I keep hearing about, I need to be tough. And I'm like, okay, well, you need to be flexible, probably more than anything, but you all are putting in the work. You're getting out early before the kids are awake, or you're heading to the office or whatever, before you like clock into work for the day, or the weather is piss poor and it's awful, or, you're getting it done after work in the dark. Like you're showing up every day. Like you showing up and doing whatever you or your coach or whomever has like put on your training plan for the day, like showing up and doing it and like checking the box maybe 80% of the time, like that's building mental toughness or psychological flexibility or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, that is enough. You don't need to like put rocks in your shoes or do anything crazy. Carry the boats, as our Lord and Savior David Goggins would say. But it's more than that, right? Like you guys are doing that every day by showing up, and some days it's fun and some days it's really hard, but you're building towards what will at some point be hard, likely tomorrow or Sunday.
Absolutely. I think as a mum who runs, like it's kind of a combination of, I guess, sacrifice, but also prioritizing. And so you'll know like what you've put into this, what you've maybe had to sacrifice. Like maybe it's actually time just sitting on the couch watching maths, or maybe it's Married at First Sight, Corrine, you've got to watch it. It's a well-known Australian TV show.
Adding it to the list.
All fun at the moment. Or, maybe it is time with your family or your loved ones, or maybe it's missing out on time with people that you wanted to do things with. And maybe it means sometimes that you have prioritised getting out when it's absolutely horrendous outside. And I think often we focus on the things that we haven't done, but focus on the things that you have done, and write your badass endurance CV and be like, I am the person that, managed to get out. My kids had kept me awake all night and I still got out for a run that day. And I found the time, I worked towards this, even though it's really hard to find the time. And sometimes the runs do suck, but it's my hobby and I want to enjoy it. So I'm here. And I think on that note too, like write your badass endurance CV. So sometimes it's not about all the running and training you've done, even though it might be like, I'm going to put that really hard, long, cold run down. Or it might be like, I'm the person that went through a 4-day labour. Or, I'm the person that drove a truck from one end of New Zealand to the other. I don't know. Find your things that you've done that you've shown some real endurance, and just, celebrate yourself and the fact that you're here today. I think we might wrap things up there. There's been so much chat, and I'm actually really excited to see where you go with things, Corrine. I want to keep chatting because, I think there's a lot of good stuff coming for us females or women in trail, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And I think I just want to remind you all that you are part of it. You are the person that inspires others or supports them. So, keep doing that. And we're going to be here for the next 5 to 10 minutes to answer some questions if you want them, or just if you want a selfie with Corrine or Lucy, go for it.
Or Ali.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you. And it's great too to see lots of guys in this audience. So thank you for also prioritising it and prioritising women in trail, because we need you on board as well. Thanks, Corrine and Lucy. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. Big round of applause for these two amazing women.
Thank you so much. You were busy that day. You had so many things to do. Yeah. And even I just reminded how, even over the course of that weekend, that, like starting races, finishing races, being on the start line, having the your squadron merch, all of that stuff. You were all over the place.
It's so fun though, it's so special, all the roles that I get to fulfill there, coach, squad mum.
Squad mum.
Dirt Church podcaster, MC, all the things. It's really fun. It's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely putting the kind of the dynamism of your roles into the community. It is. It's inspiring. It's super inspiring to see you getting out there and being so involved, and hopefully back on the running trail soon.
Yeah, just starting to try again, and so far seems to be okay. So cross fingers. Hopefully it leads to bigger and brighter things.
Absolutely. Right. Well, look, we will leave it there for this week for the Aid Station. Dirt Church Radio is me, Matt Raymond.
And me, Ali Pottinger.
And with our old mate, Andrew McDowell. So stay tuned for regular DCR podcasts over the upcoming weeks. And next week, holy moly. Not to scoop it, but my goodness me, we've got a cool guest lined up for you. So stick around for that. Mā te wā.